Hello, I'm Prajakta Kulkarni, founder of Nodes, and this is Sanket Inamdar, the CEO and founder of Nodes.
Hello.
Nodes is a learning platform that is inclusive of innovation courses and helps you conduct them effortlessly using the services of choosing lessons, being able to deliver in class effortlessly, able to liberally assess your students on the same platform, and eventually execute your classrooms by generating reports of how well your students have done during the classrooms. We are here to talk about how to identify the right problem and solution using the double diamond approach and design. For this talk, we will take you through these four agendas. First, we will introduce you to design thinking. Then we will tell you how to ensure the three elements of innovation using the process of design. Then we will talk about the double diamond process and the submission of your POCs for the IATS. And then we will talk about creating a business strategy or a product offering using double diamond and design thinking. Over to you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. So I think we have all heard about the process of design, and we have tried to practice it around us in all possible ways. We are just going to quickly brush up over the basic concepts of the process of design thinking so that it will be easy for us to practice them as we go ahead, right? So I will be taking you through the basic 3-4 steps that are necessary for us to practice the process of design while teaching anything or while creating solutions that solve problems at scale. Let's take a step back. What we usually see around us is that there are problems that everybody is occurring with, and more during the times of pandemic, we are trying to solve problems that are completely new to us and have never been faced till now before. We are also seeing a lot of solutions that are popping up everywhere through incubators, through different types of designing and innovation agencies that try to solve some of the problems or even larger problems in the system that can make the entire corona pandemic a little easy for us to live in. We might also have quickly realized that a lot of the solutions that are coming up have been built with one or two of the factors that make them a little less usable or a lot of times unusable. What we are going to do is that we are going to use a process which helps us go from understanding the problem towards building a solution and developing it consistently so that we can build solutions that help the people around us at scale and also help us keep these innovations in the process of a redevelopment where they try to solve a larger problem. Coming back to the process of design thinking, we will quickly define it first. The process of design thinking is an iterative problem-solving process. As we all must have realized till now, design is something that not only makes something look good, but it also defines on how it works towards solving a problem. Design thinking usually talks about 3 most important steps when any innovation is being made or is being implemented. The first being viability. So what is viability? Viability is the ability of a solution to solve the problem that it has been designed for. We come across a lot of solutions around us that have been built for some reason and are being utilized for some other reason altogether. A lot of times people also develop solutions and then try to find its place in the market. For example, let us take the case of a science research. Science research is something that helps us develop a science or a wizardry that can help reduce the steps in solving a problem. However, science doesn't only help us solve problems that are there in the system or that are faced by a certain group of people. Viability is a check that keeps us in sync with the problem that we are trying to solve through the process, as well as creating value for other problems that lie around the main problem. Now, let us talk about feasibility. Feasibility is, in a very basic terms, an ability that can help us build the solution quickly. Consider the case of a vaccine in case of the coronavirus that is consistently spreading. If you see why uh, a vaccine is the most viable solution that can put an end to all the problems that we are existingly facing. But is that solution feasible? Maybe not. Feasibility is an ability to build solutions, or is an ability in a solution that helps us build it very quickly. In case of vaccines, you might have understood it takes a very long time to develop a vaccine, and an even longer time to even test the vaccine, which makes it a little unfeasible to solve the problem in today's case scenario. Let us go to desirability. Now, desirability is something that is usually missed out when engineers like myself or other people who build solutions, right? Desirability is something that is always kept at the last of the entire problem solving process, though it has a very important place in the entire process of design. So what is desirability? Desirability is ability for a solution to get adopted quickly, for attracting users that can help them adopt a solution as soon as possible and to a large wide scale of audience. Desirability is something that makes us buy solutions that we might not need, right? So desirability is something that creates that urge in the customer to come and adopt the solution as soon as possible. As you can see now that viability, desirability, and feasibility come together, they form a complete solution. Let's take a case of a solution that has feasibility and viability, but it has no desirability. Consider an artisan who is trying to make clay pots in its own village and is trying to sell it to local audiences around him or her. Now, pots are being utilized for various different types of purposes, right from storing water to even make a empty area look beautiful. If a pot is able to be built in nearby resources very easily, it has feasibility. It also has the viability because it definitely helps you carry water. But if the pot is not in its right shape, fit, size, it doesn't have attractiveness towards attracting customers, it might not be utilized or might not be bought at the right value that it is being made for. Let us consider viability and desirability only being there in a solution. I think the picture is very self-explanatory, right? Without feasibility being in picture, there is a lot of solutions that are very desirable where none of them are actually solving the problem for us. This is a major blunder that we see in a lot of products around us, and we would like to ensure that even if a solution is extremely desirable and very easy to build, it should definitely solve its purpose by being the most feasible solution.
Right.
Coming to the last, a solution cannot only function on desirability and feasibility. As we saw, it cannot function with any of the other two factors being together. We always need the right all three factors to make sure that a solution is functioning to its right benefit. What we are going to do is that we are going to try and ensure that viability, desirability, and feasibility, all three are maintained in the POC that we are trying to build for the IITS. And we are also going to ensure that all these three factors are equally weighed in the solution that will make the solution not only a quick fix solution, but a solution that can be scaled and used for on a long-term purpose, which will ensure its utility in the entire system. I would like to hand over to Prajakta. She will now be taking us through the double diamond process of design thinking and how to ensure that these three elements are continuously ensured in the solution.
Okay. Before we get into the process of designing, let us understand processes. So I'll give you 5 minutes to draw how to make a toast on a sheet of paper using just a pen. You cannot write anything in words. You can only explain in visual format using sketches. Okay? For this exercise, I'll give you 5 minutes. Once you're finished drawing how to make a toast, show it to somebody around you and get them to reflect on what it means to them without you actually saying it. Hello. I'm sure you must have all drawn different types of ways how to make a toast. And but after getting feedback from people, you must have realized how different your drawings were than what you meant them to be, or how well you drew to make the other person understand the same steps. Design requires you to follow all the steps in the process, and which is why this activity was relevant for us. You cannot skip a step and hope that the toast will be made. It requires you to follow three primary steps into designing anything, into developing any kind of a solution. You start with hear, create, and deliver. Hear, which involves you empathizing with your audiences, with your target audiences once you've identified them, understanding to the core of what their problems are, how their lifestyles are, what will happen with what solutions, and what should happen with what kind of problems. Once you've understood them, once you've empathized with them, once you've realized that okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 types of problems around them, you start putting them down into insights. You cluster them, you make them into patterns, you find patterns into what you found, and then you start putting down your insights, what you've learned by empathizing with these kind of audiences, not as a person, but what you've learned about it in the process of designing a solution for the main problem or the topic that you started with. Once you've defined this problem, you get into ideation. Uh, then you get into developing that concept to follow the viability, desirability, and feasibility parts. And you create prototypes from the most feasible materials to the most difficult or the most convenient or the most perfect materials that should go with that particular solution. During prototyping and testing, you are expected to do a lot of validation, and you're expected to write down the entire process of implementation, or you enter to execute your solution in a process of implementation that will actually help solve the problem. You cannot just make one light bulb and say that, oh, I've solved the problem of darkness. You have to make sure that electricity is transmitted. You have to make sure that the bulbs are distributed. You have to make sure that the bulbs are even made. And then you will be able to eliminate the problem of darkness. This needs to happen in a loop, and this needs to happen in an iterative loop. That means that you have to constantly go from here, create, deliver, to make sure that you improvise or you improve on those concepts to make the solution stronger and stronger and stronger to befit the right audience, befit your target audience, and to help solve their right problems, so that you will be able to find the perfect perfect combination of viability, feasibility, and desirability. uh, a lot of designers work using this process or have been using discover, define, develop, and deliver process into designing solutions that have come from solutions for problems that have come from varied audiences, including clientele or including target audiences they themselves have identified. This process was defined into a double diamond structure uh, a few years ago, and a lot of these designers are constantly using this same structure to define really valuable solutions. This is why we will go with the double diamond process to understand how design process works in this loop and in an iterative format, while covering all parts and steps of the design. You need to understand that design will never flow in a linear process, that you will never be able to end up with the right solution by the end of this process. It will be a probably better solution than the last one always. So it needs to go on and evolve into the right possible solutions over a period of time, so that you constantly validate, iterate, implement, and improve on these ideas. As you can see, the double diamond is in the shape of a diamond, which covers two loops. It kind of forms an infinity loop. This will help you understand that all of these things can coincide with one another. You can see that there are lines which are diverging and there are lines which are converging, which means that these parts of process expect you and your teams to diverge at times with information and to converge as in narrow down on that information. This needs to be constant. You need to constantly diverge, go out in the audience, gather maximum information, and converge, narrow down, get into the answers, get into the right definition of what you found out. Let us now look at the double diamond of how it looks. As you can see, we follow we follow a loop between discover, define, develop, and deliver. If the deliver part is, if you actually find the right solution and you're being able to deliver, that is the place where you deliver. But if not, you evolve and you learn better. As a matter of fact, evolution relates to adaptation, which means that you need to adapt your solution. Again, you have to iterate smaller things, you have to remove the vestigial parts, and then you start with discover again, or you start by defining again. So here is the place where you have to, here is the place where you understand that the entire process of design is in a loop and flows in a divergent and a convergent part. To get deeper into this, let us look at discover. Let us look at the first part of it. You start by discovering. First, you identify who you're solving a problem for. Then you get into their lifestyle. You immerse deeply into gathering information about your audiences through primary and secondary research. uh, Primary research in design is always with a person sitting in, with your potential user or a target audience sitting in front of you. It can be the stakeholders, it can be your users, it can be somebody on your team, but there is a person, there's a human involved. That is human centered research is always considered primary in designing. The secondary research asks you to document information and collect a lot of data from articles that have been previously published. See, once you've done your primary and secondary research, you will have a lot of this information, a huge heap of information in an unstructured format. You'll have documented audios, you'll have notes, videos, images, sketches, doodles like the ones you drew right now, and you will have this large set of information that has come to you, that you've gathered by talking to so many people and by gathering so much information, which is why the next part is of converging. You take this lot of information and you put it through a funnel, which is the converging part. You narrow it down into single statements. You have to make sure that you interpret what you find into getting to understand why somebody has said what they have said, why you have observed something where you observed it, and why you have learned something new, or why you have learned something rather than what you have learned something. This will help you this will help you in getting to the corest part of your this will get you to understand the corest part of your problems. uh, to get into the core or to converge into it, you can follow these three steps. You find the patterns and findings, uh, get your findings or what you've observed, what you've learned into insights, as in derive information out of a lot of information, and then uh, deduce opportunity areas based on the viability, feasibility, and desirability model. Basically, trying to find out where the problems lie, where the opportunities lie, where are the challenges, and then frame your problem statement. This is the place where you have to conceptualize. The problem statement is a narrowed down version of the problem that you began with. For example, if you say that you started with a problem for saving fuel, you've narrowed down to a problem that says saving fuel while parking car. So defining the problem means defining the right set of problem that will actually get to solve that problem, get to solve the bigger problem. The next part is of developing. Once you've identified the right problem statement, the solution usually presents itself. But you should not stick to the solution that comes to you within the first 20 seconds. The idea is to get millions of solutions on one single problem so that the right solution can fit, so that the right solution can be formed from millions of ideas, and there can be a large number of uh, opportunities available to be able to solve one single problem. So this is the place where you diverge, you gather maximum ideas, and you validate these maximum ideas. So you start by validating it within your team members. You come down with a smaller set of ideas, and then you do a more validation with your customers, with your users, and you again come back with a smaller set of ideas. When selecting an idea, the best thing to go with is the viability, feasibility, and desirability model. You The final idea or the final concepts that you select should fall into these, should have these three parts. And usually if it goes from the need side, you usually will be able to have these three parts. So this is the part where you again converge. You reduce your ideas down to a few. You make sure that all the ideas have the three factors of viability, feasibility, and desirability, and uh, you start testing them rapidly by prototyping. Now, rapid prototyping requires you to form solutions with available materials like best of waste, or start with so you start with even a pen and paper like we did, and get into a better and better quality prototype as you improve it. The idea is to not be attached to one single prototype, and to be able to make multiple levels of prototype as you go on and make it as better as possible, so that you will be able to deliver fast. If you go on with one single prototype, get it into the market and deliver it right away without solving the core issues that it already has, it will, no matter what, it will fail and will cause you a lot of economical drama. Instead, start with solutions which you can test fast, which you can discard fast, or which you can iterate fast, and get into designing the final solution. Ideally, do your validation and iteration process twice minimum. Iterate your solution to a level where it kind of fits into the area where it needs to solve the problem, and then start designing the roadmap to it solving the problem in the customer journey. This is the place where you need to get the solution from your hands to the customer's hands. So, implementation remains the most important part of designing anything. Here is a place where you can decide whether your solution can actually go into the user's hands. If it does not, by any problem with any problems of viability, feasibility, and desirability, you evolve and you turn it around and you go back to discovering, you go back to understanding the core of these problems. You get into define, develop, and then you come back to deliver. To to sum it up, you start with problem, you diverge with problem and try to learn most about your problem. You converge by getting down to one single part of that core problem, whatever it is causing. Then you again diverge and diverge into ideas, into multiple millions of ideas, and then you get into converging, deliver one single idea to the stakeholder that you're working with. To give you an example of such a process, I'm sure all of you use, or all of you must have used Uber app at some point uh, for transit within the city. So now there was a time, I'm sure most of you must remember, that there was no such app available, and a lot of people faced a problem of hailing cabs. I'm sure. So when Uber started their research. They started with the problem of not being able to hail cabs faster, and they diverged into a lot of people, and they talked to a lot of people who used cabs themselves, understood the purpose of taxis and cabs, or public transport, gathered information about how this is feasible, what are the problems, what are the realization, and they came down to one single problem, which is of not knowing when the cab is going to arrive for you to go to your next destination. Now, this is something that you can solve very easily, because you've already underlined that problem, that little definition of a problem that gets you from not being able to hail a cab at all to being able to know when your cab is going to arrive. Once you know that this is the place where this is the problem that you want to solve, they got into multiple ideas of how to solve it. They got into making cards, making maps, giving them a calling service, giving them an SMS service, and then they came down to one single idea, which was of navigation. Today, what they have incorporated is a navigation system that lets you already understand when your driver is going to arrive on the app, so that you don't need to waste time, or so that your anxiety is not built whether you will reach your destination or time or not. This has helped them create the desirability. This has helped them to have the viability, desirability, and feasibility all into one solution. Uh, what we expect you to design, what we expect you to submit as your POC is these 4 steps of the double diamond process: the discover, define, develop, and deliver. In Discover, you're expected to submit an unstructured research in the form of Word or a document, which covers all the information related to the problem area or the topic that you have selected. Then you have to submit a problem statement with supporting insights that will help us understand how well you have defined the problem. Uh, in the develop area, you need to submit ideas and concepts which fit into the viability, feasibility, and desirability criteria, along with hypothetical questions that will support your selected ideas. The last thing is the solution video. Once you've made a prototype, which is your concept, you need to show how you've tested the video with your customers. So building a 3D model of whatever solution is, taking a video of it along with a user who's trying to use it. Along with the solution video, you are expected to submit a summary for a business proof, so that it completes your entire proof of concept area.
Now, what I'm going to talk a little about is the business aspect and trying to connect it with design thinking as much as we can, right? So, design thinking has always proven out to be a great way to do business for older businesses and for even newer businesses. Let us take the example of a company that we all know, which is Nike. So Nike essentially makes shoes, and they have been making multiple accessories for different types of athletes, which are specified for that type of athlete. Right here, what we can see right now is a runner who has been running and has his insoles or has his soles that are popping out of his shoes. Right. So essentially, what Nike was trying to do was trying to build better shoes for their runners. As and when they were doing it, what they realized is that this is a problem of socks colliding with the insoles and pulling the insoles out when the user or when the runner runs too fast. So this is a problem that had been occurring and had been trying to be solved by multiple shoe companies during the time. Also, having socks in itself or having both the things together were in general being considered as a large problem that people were trying to solve. Nike likes indulging with their customers to a level which we don't understand, which means that it is really deep. What Nike did was that they used to do a lot of frequent trials with their runners with different kinds of shoes that were being worn by the athletes. The problem was very evident and was very easily definable, that the socks pull out the insoles however good the shoes are. What would a usual business or what would a usual designer do? He would stick the insole better, right? Yeah, so I think even I would have come up with a solution that would have put a stronger glue in place that maybe just did not let the insole come out. But they tried to look at the problem a little more holistically. They tried to diverge on understanding of the problem. They didn't only look at the insole popping out as the problem, but also the sock which tried to enable that. Now, socks have been considered by us as something extra that we always have to wear with shoes. We forget socks. We have to wash socks. We have to buy socks. We have to do 100 things about socks. And socks is something that we really don't understand the value for unless our feet start smelling. Now, what did Nike do is that their understanding of the problem and their consideration towards getting more and more number of solutions to solve more problems enabled them with a design that could help them completely eliminate the socks out of a shoe, which not only solved the problem of the insole popping out, but also reduced a part that the athlete needed to maintain also during his most important part of doing, which was running. As we can see, the companies that generate value for the users with such a close combat or such a close interaction consistently and tries to solve their problems is something that customers also very strongly look up to. When customers see that their real problems are being actually addressed and solved through simpler ways by these companies, it becomes hard for customers to leave the companies out of them not being able to buy the products. The best business is something where customer keeps on coming back to you. This is where I'd like to touch upon design thinking and business strategy a little together. I would say that the best business strategy is to make sure that a user never has to face a problem again and doesn't have to be solving or trying to solve his own problems while trying to utilize different types of solutions. If I were a business, I would try to enable my customer with everything that is necessary to solve his problems for the longest duration of time. And my friends, that is the most important part of starting or running any economic venture. As Warren Buffett, the most famous economician, says, economic moats are formed around user habits. User habits are something that are developed by companies for essentially not removing them out of the process during which the user is using their product. For example, in case of a product, if the problem gets solved or doesn't get solved because of the solution, the place where the company starts adding or losing value is by keeping or removing its importance in the process, even while trying to solve the problem for the user. The most important part of an economic model is to not being removed out of a process, as well as be staying relevant for their customer for the longest duration of time. This is in itself the most and the strongest business strategy that can enable startups or even business founders to use the process to create these kind of economic moats around products that will help them stay in business for long and then grow very quickly. Saying so, I would like to encourage you to build products which not only solve problems for users at that point of time, but also try to keep relevant for their customers for a long duration of time. Saying so, I would love to end my talk and encourage you to create the double diamond process and build your POC on the same. Thank you.
Please feel free to contact us through our email IDs, prajakta@notes.co.in and sanket@notes.co.in. I'm sure they have provided you with our email IDs for any further information on design thinking, entrepreneurship, or even our learning platform.